Keke was furious. She didn't like feeling this way. She thought it would make her feel good once she finally hit Allison with the news about her long-lost father, but it didn't feel as good as she'd imagined all those years. Actually, it didn't feel good at all. She thought she'd be ecstatic when she told Allison she was going to see if she would be able to get back child support from Elgin, but when found out she was owed over $10 million, it didn't give her the thrill she imagined it would be. Somewhere deep in her guarded, wounded heart, she was sorry things turned out this way. She had hurt Allison more than she could have known. She thought people with money had everything she didn't, so why spare them? So what if it was half flesh and blood? She was just a rape baby. She didn't want her in the first place. Every time she looked at Allison, she was reminded of the tragic way she was conceived. Then Allison had the nerve to end up with the life she had dreamed of. How dare her? It angered Keke that she felt a little sorry for hurting Allison. Keke was also angry that the prospect of receiving millions of dollars wouldn't change the fact that she'd lived a really crappy life for over 50 years. The money would help, but it wouldn't be a cure-all. What good would the money do her now besides getting her off her back and afford her a nicer place to live? She was pretty sure Rishashal would pawn those Bebe kids' grandsons off on her too. She didn't want to say no to her because she would have been in even worse shape than she was now were it not for Rishashal providing a roof over her head and paying the bills. That's the least she could do, she supposed. It still wasn't much of a life though.
What I'm gonna do with that money anyway? I ain't got nobody who really love me. I suppose the boys love they granny, but they be grown up soon and gone on they way. Rishash ain't got time for nobody but Deshaun and Ben Franklin. I guess I should be happy for what I do got, Keke lamented. Well, when I do get this money, I'll make the best of it and try to provide a future for these bad kids. That's if we get the money.
Keke let out a big sigh and poured herself a drink. It was the morning, but her day was already dark. 30 years ago, Keke Freeman was a fox. She could have any man she wanted and she pretty much had them all. It took a heavy toll on her mentally, spiritually, and physically. Even though Keke acted like she was the life of the party, she felt empty and dirty. To cover up her pain, she drank. All those years of promiscuity and drinking made her look and feel much older than her 52 years. Now Keke is empty and bitter. She resents Allison for having married well, but Keke would never admit it to anyone out loud. It's hard enough to admit it to herself. She knows that there's no way on earth a good man would choose to settle down with her now. The thought of that makes her drink more every day. It helps her escape the loneliness, and it helps her forget all the mistakes she's made in her life that have led to her miserable existence. Keke sometimes would think back to the night she met Allison's father. She didn't like to think about it, but for some reason, she couldn't stop herself today. Now that she'd told Allison who her father was, she had a flashback to that eventful evening. I wish I would've stuck a knife in his gut and done him in. At least I wouldn't have to live with having to see him on TV living the good life while I ended up like this. I was the stuff back then. That should have been my life. Keke was crying and gulping down glass after glass of whiskey. She was feeling sorry for herself. She tried to stop thinking about it, but the memories kept flooding back.
Hey pretty mama. Come here.
Elgin was slick as he motioned for Keke to come over to him. He sat alone in a dark corner near the back of Platinum Ladies Gentlemen's Club. He had heard about her from some friends of his and he came that night to see what all the fuss was about. They were right. Keke, or Lady Ecstasy as she was known as at the club, had moves he'd never seen before. Elgin was from a small town that didn't have strip clubs. Besides, his father was a pastor and everyone in town knew him. If he stepped out of line, it got back to his parents before he got home. All that righteous living made him more curious than normal. Before he was out of high school, he was nearly addicted to pornography and had begun hiring prostitutes. He would drive over to a nearby town, where no one knew him, and do his dirt. Elgin was happy that he went to seminary in Atlanta. He was a couple of thousand miles from home and he could live as he pleased, to a point. He still kept his habits a secret from the people at seminary, of course. He did discover he was not alone in his perverted way of life, but he had lived a double life for so long, it was more natural to hide it and pretend he never heard of such a thing. When some of her friends talked about the strip clubs they went to and the loose women they messed around with, he never admitted to doing the same things, but he secretly took mental notes. Keke had noticed Elgin watching her. He was handsome and more respectable looking than most of the old pimps and players who were the regulars there. She figured him to be college-aged and from a decent family. When he called her over to his table, she was flattered. Keke loved the money she made, but she craved love and attention. Many men said they loved her, but she knew they just said that to get her. The attention she received was only out of lust. She wanted a nice young man to fall in love with her and marry her. Deep down inside, Keke wanted to have the house with a white picket fence, 2 kids, a girl and a boy, and a husband who came home and kissed her hello and told her how much he missed her all day. Looking at Elgin, she imagined all of this with him.
Hi handsome, what can I do for you? I saw you watching me. Did you enjoy the show? Did you like what you saw?
Boy, did I ever. I would really love to spend some time alone with you. How much?
How much? I'm sorry sugar, but you got the wrong idea about me. I ain't no hooker. And to think I thought you were different.
Keke was insulted. She actually thought he was interested in her. He only saw her as a cheap prostitute. Tears were welling up in Keke's eyes. Elgin wanted her more than a thirsty man wanted water.
No. Please forgive me. I didn't mean to imply that you were a prostitute. I know that you are a highly paid professional dancer. Any time away from the stage is money lost. I was merely offering to pay you for whatever wages you would lose by not being here to dance. Please say you will accept my apologies and my offer to make it worth your while to spend some time with me.
He gave her a puppy dog look that would melt rocks.
Okay, since you put it that way. Let me go tell Slick I had a family emergency and then we'll blow this joint. Hey Slick, my cousin came in to find asked me to let me know my aunt is really sick, so I have to leave right away.
Yeah. Okay if you say so. I hope she get better soon.
Slick had seen her with the young man and knew she was lying. But he played along. He knew Elgin's type, clean cut and dirty. He figured he was going to pay her for her time, and Slick planned to get his cut. Keke was relieved that she was wrong about this handsome young man. He just could be her ticket out of there. She was making good money, but it looked like he was not broke either. At least he had real potential. He looked like he should be able to provide a good life for her one day.
Hey sugar, what's your name? I was wondering what your name is. My real name is Keke. Keke Freeman.
He ignored her almost as if he was in a daze. Keke tapped him lightly on the arm and asked him again.
Oh, Elgin. It's Elgin.
Have you got a last name?
Yeah, I do. Come on pretty lady. It's getting late. Let's do this. Let's go somewhere that we can be alone and talk and get to know each other. There's my cars around the corner there. Hop in.
Elgin reached for Keke and started kissing her. It wasn't the romantic kiss she imagined. It was frantic and sloppy. He was groping her and pulling on her clothes.
Whoa. Slow down, cowboy. I thought you said you wanted to get to know me. We got all night.
Keke smiled at Elgin demurely and hoped that would slow him down at least a little bit. She figured he was young and eager. Besides, she knew she was pretty and men found it hard to resist her. She wanted this to be different though. Elgin gave her a look that was pure evil. Keke felt her stomach churn from fear. He looked as if he wanted to kill her. Keke is in shock and tries to get away, but Elgin hit her and said,
Look you whore. You are not going anywhere. I'm not done with you. You will leave when I am through with you and not a minute sooner. Until then, shut your trap and do what you're told. When I'm done, I'll dump you back out when I found you. Got it?
She could not believe what was happening. She had been called almost every name in the book, and she had been disrespected in almost every way she could imagine. but she never felt this kind of fear before. He was like Jekyll and Hyde. Elgin cranked up the car and drove to a part of town Keke had never seen before. She thought she grew up in a seedy part of town, but this had it beat. He parked in a dark, narrow alley, then turned off the car lights.
Oh my God. What am I going to do? Keke thought. God, I know I don't live right. I know that. But please don't let this man kill me. I promise I will never do anything like this again.
He pulled out his wallet and counted out 10 $100 bills, $1,000. He put it in her hands and asked her,
How does all that money feel in your hands?
It feel good.
Well, I told you I would pay you for your time. Now sit on the dashboard and get in the back seat. If I feel like you earned it, you'll get to keep it. From the way you dance, you shouldn't have any problem keeping it.
Keke had been with a lot of men in her short life, but she had never been treated so badly before. Elgin raped her and beat her for hours. It was like he was possessed. He cursed her and called her every vile name imaginable. He spat on her and choked her. He was a monster. When she mentioned in a weak voice that he wasn't using any protection, the abuse intensified. She just kept thinking to herself, it'll be over soon. He can't go like this much longer. At least I'll have $1,000 for my troubles. Finally, Elgin was exhausted. He flopped down on top of Keke and fell asleep. She was already in more pain than she could bear. Now she was supporting his dead weight. She wished he had just killed her and ended her suffering and pain. Anything would be better than this. After about 15 minutes, Elgin woke up, looked at her with total disgust, and said,
I can't wait to get you out of my car, you whore. Stay in the back and don't sit up. I don't want anyone to see you with me.
Keke didn't think she could sink any lower. With this, she hit rock bottom. She laid in the back seat and sobbed until her whole body shook. She began to worry that he may have given her a disease or gotten her pregnant. She'd been hearing about this disease called AIDS. She knew a couple of people who had it. It was a horrible disease. Everyone who got it died. Keke thought murder was a better fate than contracting that awful disease. Before Keke knew it, the car had stopped. She had no idea what time it was or how far they had driven. The sun was just starting to come up in the distance. He told her to sit up and get out only when he told her it was okay to do so. He reached over the seat and held the $1,000 out to her. Just as she reached for it with trembling fingers, he snatched it back and said,
Sykes Skeezer. Did you really think I was going to give you a dime of my money? You're dumber than I thought you were. Well, I got what I wanted. I don't ever want to see you again. And if you got knocked up, I don't want to know about it. Put some of that stripper money to good use and get rid of it. We don't have any bastard children in my family and I'm not going to be the first one to have one. Now get away from me.
Keke could barely walk. She pulled herself out of the car and then dragged herself to the door of the club. She knew she couldn't call the police. They wouldn't care about what happened to her. It would be the word of a stripper versus the word of a clean-cut college boy. She couldn't tell Slick. He would be angry with her for not bringing back any money. She didn't make him any money dancing the night before and now she was empty-handed. Keke decided to go inside and call a cab. She would stay home for a couple of days or so until she healed up. Thankfully, Elgin hadn't broken any bones or caused any lacerations. She was pretty bruised up and so though. She ended up staying home for a week. She made up another story that her aunt passed away and then she got in a car accident when she left the funeral. That would explain the bruises and soreness. Slick actually believed the car accident story. Keke was relieved that he believed her. She wasn't prepared for another beating, however, when a month later, she discovered she was pregnant with Elgin's child. She finally told Slick the whole story of what happened that night. He told her he knew what she was up to and didn't press her for any money since he thought she was in an accident and couldn't work. Once he knew the truth, found out she was pregnant, and she didn't get any money, he flew into a rage and beat her almost as badly as Elgin had beat her.
God, why didn't I die that night? I can't take this no more.
At that point, Keke's trip down memory lane ended. Reality wasn't much better than those horrible memories. She was broke, busted, and disgusted as the saying goes. At that thought, she refilled her glass with more cheap liquor and tried to drink away her demons yet again.